Hi, I'm Leonard Maltin.
And I'm Jessie Maltin.
And you're listening to Maltin on Movies. And you know what we don't have on this podcast?
What don't we have on this podcast?
I realized this last night where I was watching TV and I saw a commercial. And I said, we don't have a slogan. I saw a commercial for Ensure, you should pardon the expression. And the slogan was, always be you. Isn't that profound? Always be you. And I thought of Chevy, find new roads.
Oh, yeah.
And our favorite,
Be More Tea.
Lipton Tea started this
Be
ad
More
campaign
Tea.
with the Muppets. Be More Tea. What the heck does that mean?
Why? Why is Kermit telling me to be more tea?
I don't understand.
I don't get it.
So I think if we had a slogan, we would be much further along on our path toward multi-million-dollar success.
That is the goal.
It was one of them.
It is the goal. I don't. What would it be?
I don't know.
Talking
is good.
Talking is good. My personal motto: nepotism is awesome. That's
Ogden Nash, I think, the great late humorous poet, said, "Nepotism begins at home."
It's true. It is true.
I do believe in that.
It is true.
We're living proof. Well, anyway, we are here for your listeners at home. We are here at the Traverse City Film Festival in truly...
It almost sounds like we have a real audience.
Yeah.
Nearly.
Here in beautiful, when I say beautiful, I mean beautiful Traverse City, Michigan.
Normally he's being sassy and making a joke, but this place is amazing.
Not sarcastic. This is the real deal. What a pretty place you folks live in.
Yeah.
How many of you are locals?
So since this is, I'm going to call it radio, and no one at home can see, it's many of them.
Yes.
Many of them are locals.
And
lucky you.
Dare I take another poll? How many of you have heard our podcast before? Both of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. It's good.
Well, what we do is we talk. And we talk about movies. And we love talking about movies. And that's what we're going to do. And we're going to start today. We don't have this planned, as you'll certainly see for yourself.
You're not setting us up well here.
No, you'll see. We just kind of light a little fire and see if it takes.
I'm going to call these all Maltin-splanations.
Yeah, that's fine.
There have been a lot of Maltin-splanations tonight.
One of the things we've been thinking about lately, and there's a specific reason, is the idea of opinions.
Everybody has them.
Everybody has them.
Everybody has them.
Critical opinions.
Yeah.
And the response to critical opinions. There's been a lot of coverage lately of Rotten Tomatoes, and a number of articles, including in the trade press, in the LA Times, which is our hometown newspaper, talking about how people are even bemoaning the fact that people are using the scores, the aggregate scores on Rotten Tomatoes, as substitute for real film criticism.
Yeah.
Well, people used to say that about Gene and Roger's thumbs. Really? Can you just boil it down to thumbs up or thumbs down?
Apparently you can.
Apparently you can. Yeah. Well, and in the many, many years I edited my movie guide, we had a 4-star to 1.5-star rating.
Yeah, which is why no one will leave alone the fact that he gave Laser Blast 2.5 stars, and there's like a whole bunch of other films that also have that. But you can't compare two movies. So the fact that you like Chips, but you also like something else, it's not. We don't mean that they're the same.
No, not at all. But see, the thing that I find interesting about Rotten Tomatoes is that it presumes the fact that there's even a debate regarding Rotten Tomatoes presumes that people actually pay attention to film critics.
Yeah.
Which isn't the case.
No.
Now, there is a sector of the audience, some of them may be here, because you are true believers, you're attending this festival. There's a segment of the audience that does pay attention to critics. It was well known that Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, when they had their very popular weekly television show, in addition to their newspaper columns in Chicago, could really influence viewers. If they got behind a movie, if they championed a movie, people would say, I want to give that a try.
Yeah. Side note, I always used to say that as a publicity stunt, we should cut off his thumbs. Because people always come up and go, so is it 2 thumbs up? It's like that. He's not either one of those guys. So I said, just get rid of the thumbs.
Yeah, well,
seemed like a good idea at the time, probably.
This is what it would look like without the
right.
Sight gag on radio. Anyway, it's It's just not true. If there were real influence by film critics, it would never have been a Friday the 13th Part 2, or Part 7. And conversely, the little movies that critics tend to really champion and get behind
they'd have
would
more
become
attention.
box office smashes. So critics have some influence over some people in the audience. And usually it's to get behind one of those movies that needs a little help.
Yeah.
That might slip through the cracks unnoticed.
And every year, this is always the tricky part, though. Every year, at least one smaller film gets championed to the point of many times being nominated for an Oscar or something like that. And then people go in thinking they're going to see the greatest movie ever made. You go, no, 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 no. The idea is to see it not knowing that it's really good and just give it a shot by yourself. So many times, because this has happened, there's always backlash. Little Miss Sunshine, Slumdog Millionaire. It's that kind of thing. If you just see it by itself,
I remember the year that Lost in Translation came out, a film I love. Yeah. By applause, how many share my opinion of Lost in Translation? Well, I can tell you that I saw it early on and didn't know anything about it and just fell in love with it. Sofia Coppola's film with Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson. Well, when they opened it wide, I started seeing TV commercials that said things like, quoting some critic, "Bill Murray is hilarious." Well, no, and he's not trying to be.
Mm-mm.
So what happened was they were misleading people, getting them into the theater under false pretenses, and boy, were people ticked off.
Not happy about it.
Not happy at all. So I would have
That's
people.
unfair to the film.
Exactly. For a couple of months, and it happens at least with one film a year, people who would recognize me and stop me in a hotel corridor or at an airport or a restaurant or something, give me kind of a fisheye look, and they'd say, "What did you think of Lost in Translation?" Daring me to say I liked it. And I said, "Well, I liked it, but apparently you didn't." "No, I did not." I said, "When did you see it?" "Last Thursday." "Well, that's why. I saw it knowing nothing. And a clean slate. And that's why I was able to sort of discover it for myself.
And that's part of what makes film festivals so much fun and such a wonderful experience. We always tell people, there is now a film festival everywhere. I guarantee wherever you are, there's at least one. It's the Trader Joe's Film Festival. It's the Ralph's Film Festival. It's everywhere. And while it may be silly at times just how many there are, if it means you can go and watch movies, especially movies that you might not otherwise get to see, you always say that you feel a bit more brave. You're willing to give more things a try at a festival.
Yeah, I'm more daring at a film festival. If I'm at the festival and I'm not home, where there are always a million things to do, if I'm devoted to being at a festival to see films, I'll say, well, I'm going to give that a try.
Yeah.
And
which is how he ends up at foreign films at like 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
And God knows where.
It happens. Whereas at home, I'll find a reason not to do it. Oh, do I really feel like driving across town, see this obscure movie? And I'll succumb to laziness or fatigue or whatever it may be. Now,
just life. You just get busy.
Right. Now, the other aspect of criticism we want to discuss is the unfortunate problem of swimming against the tide.
Yes.
Case in point, right now, I did not care for Dunkirk. Now, that puts me in a minority. It has gotten rave reviews. I've read several columns that insist it's going to be a leading Oscar contender this year.
Yeah.
Because it's about an important subject. The Oscar folks like that.
Yeah.
The production values and the execution of the film are impeccable. But I had misgivings about it, and I found some things to quibble with. And I said so honestly in my review on my website, leonardmaltin.com, and you got to plug it when you can. And I know, as a result, a lot of people are unhappy with me.
Well, so what happened was, a few weeks ago, we both did not like Wonder Woman. And this did not go well for us.
I like the opening.
The thing is...
I like the beginning.
Oh, there are pieces in it, but collectively, when the film ended, we're sitting next to each other, And the film ends, and I didn't know what he thought. Usually I can guess, because we've seen a lot of movies together, and usually I can guess.
My body language.
It's something, just your face. He doesn't have a poker face, so if he's enjoying it, he'll be sitting really pleasantly, and if he's not, it's just this, like, Buster Keaton. And I leaned back and I said, "What did you think?" He said, "That's the dullest superhero movie I have ever seen." And I said, "I'm so bored." And that's the thing, is that it's a movie. So not everyone's going to react the same way.
Now, I can't hide. I can't go in a corner. I have to air my opinion publicly. That's my job. And I like doing my job. But nowadays, in the era of the internet, people can respond instantaneously, and do, and people can spread their feelings amongst like-minded folks.
You make it sound so polite.
Yeah, I know. A lot of dumb yahoos out there can.
A lot of death threats. A lot of real angry people.
And what I want to say to them, it's just an opinion.
It's just an opinion.
And it's just a movie.
It's just
a
movie.
People say something like, "Eat blank and die."
Yep. We get that a lot.
Really?
We get that a whole lot.
Do you really, because I thought this about a movie, do you really want me to die?
I have said to people, "Did he punch your mother in the face?" Like, I don't understand how you equate one thing to the other. I don't get it. And so what happens every now and then is the daughter in me comes out, and if you're saying rude things about my dad, it is my legal right to kill you. And what'll happen sometimes, and it happened with Wonder Woman, is because the thing is, it's not. Whereas here, if you disagree, and you may have liked Wonder Woman, you're allowed to like Wonder Woman. I hope you liked it. I'd always prefer people to enjoy themselves when they see a film. And here, because we're in front of each other, you could walk up and go, "Oh, I really liked it." And he'd say, "Well, what do you like about it?" And you'd have a conversation, a discussion, like humans do. But when you put it on the interweb, immediately all of that goes away, and it goes from saying, because it's never, "Well, here's what I liked about it, and I'm sorry you didn't." It is just, "You are the worst person that has ever walked the earth, and I hope you die." And again, you kind of go, I get it, Gal Gadot's gorgeous, but really? And it's just this extreme reaction that makes no sense. But if you call people out, if you start calling them out, and you bring in that human element, suddenly they don't have the nerve. They don't have the nerve anymore.
I think there's a phenomenon about writing online, whether it's anonymously or not, that people think they're not saying anything to another human being. They're addressing something out in the great ether, and they don't think about anybody on the receiving end of those words.
Nope. So as soon as you make it human, as soon as I say, "Please don't tell my dad to die," they go, "Oh, that's probably not very nice, is it?" It's like, "No, it's not. It's not very nice to tell him to die." Or say he should quit doing what he's doing because he's old and he doesn't get it. Or any of the things that we get, and there's a heap.
Didn't we get one? I don't read these.
Yeah.
Didn't we get one response from somebody who said, "Oh, I'm just giving that bad review to Dunkirk to call attention to myself"?
Well, no. So for Wonder Woman, it was you were getting paid by the studios. That was my favorite. Was it started? You're on Fox's payroll. He is? Yeah, you are.
And it's a Warner Brothers movie.
You're on Disney's payroll. What? And it's because he gave the movie a bad review just to get at Warner Brothers, which is totally how it works, by the way. And we are waiting for the check in the mail. Has that come yet?
Never.
Damn it all. So you have that. But then with Dunkirk, it immediately is you're only saying you don't like the film so you can get attention. Which is ridiculous.
I've never, ever done that except once. There's one exception. Year before last, I think it was, I went to see Zoolander 2.
You did.
I can't blame
did
anybody
not
else.
go well.
I chose to do it. It was an advanced press screening. My wife didn't feel like going that night. I think you were out of town.
Yeah.
And I went. And I saw some of my colleagues there and other media people. And I liked the first film with Ben Stiller well enough.
Yeah.
Oh, it was pretty funny. Yeah. So I had no chip on my shoulder. I had no advance prejudice one way or another. Okay, go ahead, show me the movie. And it started, and I really disliked it, like from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I used to tell myself in my early days in this job or this career that I'm going to stay to the end because maybe it'll get better. Folks, it never gets better. If a film sort of announces its awfulness in minute 1, odds are very long that it's going to suddenly get better at minute 92.
We have a 20-minute rule at home. If we're watching something on, I was going to say cassette.
Yeah.
Good grief. If we're watching something at home on DVD or in any form, the rule is we have to get through 20 minutes of it. Which, considering that my dad, when I was writing for the book, for the movie guide, called me the Rob Schneider specialist, meant that some of us had a harder time getting to 20 minutes than others. So when I was watching Rob Schneider's The Animal, at 5 minutes, I called my dad. I said, "Why are you doing this to me?" At 10 minutes, I said, "No, seriously, why are you doing this to me?" At 15 minutes, I said, "You just don't love me. That has to be it." And at 20, I said, "I'm never forgiving you for this." And I haven't. So it's the other one I won't forgive him for is Glitter, but that's something else.
That's another story. Anyway, I never walk out of movies.
No, even
Never.
when we
Now,
beg.
at home, I don't hold myself to the same rule at home as Jesse just said. If we're watching a screener, a DVD screener, or now it's a link, computer link of a movie, and it's really bad, and we've given it 10, 15, 20 minutes, I'll pop it out. I don't need to waste the rest of my evening on that film. But if I go to a screening, or if I go to my neighborhood theater, which I do, I'm there. I'm there to the bitter end. I don't leave until I've been threatened with civil and criminal prosecution. That's the end of the movie. But I'm sitting there as Zoolander, squirming in my seat, and really disliking it. And finally, I don't know, about a half hour, 35 minutes
Something
in,
like that.
I wanted to do it earlier. I finally said, life's too short. I'm going. Now, another reason I don't walk out of movies is I can't then give them a proper review. I don't know, how can I give a movie a review that I haven't seen start to finish? It's just not ethical. So what I did was I headlined my review, "Why I Walked Out of Zoolander 2." Now, don't you think, of course, that got more hits than any review I posted the rest of the year? That's the internet.
Yep.
That's the world of the net
Yep.
now. If you do something outrageous or outlandish, it does call attention. So if more people have read the Dunkirk review than that we normally get, so be it. But that's not why I wrote that review. I wrote the review from the heart, seriously.
Yeah. One of the things that we do think about sometimes is, are we ready for the backlash? And because Wonder Woman was recent, when he wrote Dunkirk, the last line of it is essentially, "I know I'm going against the tide, but so be it." So this time when I posted the review, and this is the other thing that gets me annoyed, is that people almost never actually read the review. They just go off of the line that we put up on Twitter or whatever it is. And so they'll say, "Well, you just hated it." I go, "No, actually, if you read it, he was impressed with it visually, thought it was beautiful and incredibly well done. He just didn't like the movie itself, the story. Didn't criticize the acting, none of that. Just didn't like the story." And there too, if you try to sort of bring that up.
Lack of exposition,
Yeah.
I think, was one of my key points.
Yeah. But what that meant was people had a harder time yelling and screaming at him because he said, "I know I'm going against the tide." So they couldn't just say, "Well, you're just a stupid head," though they wanted to.
Yeah.
And some did anyway.
And again, whether or not you agree, you're entitled to agree, you're entitled to disagree.
Yeah.
But it's just an opinion.
Yep.
What I find over the years is that when people say to me they like my reviews, what they're really saying in a kind of a code is, "I agree with you." 9 times out of 10, if you like a critic, it's because you agree with them.
Yeah.
You tend to agree with them. You have aligned yourself with their point of view. And this is why it's hard for me to read anonymous reviews online that people post. If you go to IMDb or any number
Yeah.
of other sites where people weigh in on a movie. Now, they may be very intelligent people. They may even be good writers. But I don't know them. I don't know who they are. Why should I trust their opinion? Are they? Well, I don't know anything about them, do I? And that's the key, because if I asked any number of you if you still follow a critic, and not a lot of people do apparently. I'm tripping over my own tongue today. Not a lot of people do apparently, but if they did, then it would be because, oh, I like him, I like her way of thinking, I like his, mindset.
Yep.
And that tends to be it. Now, if I read a review, now I'm not an average guy because I'm reviewing movies. So if I read a review, it's after I've seen the movie, not before. I'm not using the review as a kind of a consumer guide. I've already seen the movie. I want to read a good essay. I want to read good writing, and I want to learn something from the review. I want to learn something about the movie. I want the critic to illuminate something that I may have missed, or deepen my appreciation or understanding of the film, or the filmmaker in general. Yeah. And that's what I'm seeking in a review.
And also sometimes having someone explain what they like about something, because it may sort of remind you what you liked.
Yeah.
If somebody is articulate and they go, well, actually, I thought that this, and this were incredibly well done, you sort of go, yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
And that's the point. Is it's supposed to interest you and stay with you.
Yeah.
And make you think.
My wife and I just had a fascinating experience. I know we've never had an experience quite like this before. All three of us, just a few weeks ago, were in the Czech Republic, attending the Karlovy Vary Film Festival.
International Film Festival.
Which has gone since 1946, the same year Cannes began. Mm-hmm. So it's an old, much respected, very well attended film festival in Eastern Europe. And they show they show like 130 movies, something like that, over the course of about 10 days. From all over the world. Heavy emphasis on Eastern European films and Czech films, of course. But also the opening night, all the tributes were American.
We didn't know. We didn't know what the opening night film was going to be. So we're sitting there. They did we'll call it interesting opening with women in plastic and blood. It was great. You had to be there. And it finishes and everything. And now it's the opening night film, and it's The Big Sick, Kumail Nanjiani's film, which, if you haven't seen, by the way, is a wonderful film.
And the honorees that night in person were Casey Affleck,
Uma Thurman,
and the composer James Newton Howard, American.
Great Czech people.
Well,
and then that was The Big Sick. It was what? I mean, I was happy.
It was out of character with the rest of the festival.
It made
no
sense.
But one day, my wife and I went to see a film that's a German-Israeli co-production. Yes, you heard me right.
Imagine the jokes.
Yes, called The Cake Maker, and it's about a young baker, has a little shop in Jerusalem, and a customer who comes on a regular basis because he's from Berlin, but he has regular business there, and he travels in and commutes, and falls in love with the baked goods at this little shop. And then he falls in love with the baker. He has a family back in Berlin. Things happen. I won't give away the rest of the movie in case it winds up being released here, but that's the premise of the movie. And there's a very large auditorium we were in. I don't know how many it seated. Certainly
a lot.
Maybe 1,000.
Yeah.
800, 900, something like that.
Huge.
Big crowd. And they, at the beginning of the show, introduced the filmmaker, his colleagues, the cast. They were all sitting there watching the film too. Now, I've heard about this kind of thing happening at the Cannes Film Festival, but I've never witnessed it before. When the film was over, the entire audience rose to its feet and gave it a prolonged, and I mean prolonged, standing ovation. I mean several minutes long. And the only two people who weren't sharing in those accolades were my wife and me. We were looking at each other going, huh?
Very lonely.
And it's not a terrible movie. It's not bad. It just didn't work for us. Just didn't do anything. It didn't affect us emotionally. This crowd could not have been more enthusiastic. Yeah. And I think since the festival's over, it's fair for me to say that we later heard that the jury didn't like it. Well, the evidence is there. They
Yeah,
didn't give
the
it any
jury
prizes.
really didn't like it.
So we went, "Whew, we're not crazy." But that audience loved that movie. Now, again, it's just an opinion. And there's no accounting for it. I teach a class at USC in Southern California, in LA, and I have 300 some students in my class, and every week we show a new movie just before it's released, and we might have the director or the writer or the producer or a cinematographer,
Costume designer,
or a production designer or an actor. Sometimes we have several when we're lucky. And the next week we discuss last week's movie, how the evening begins. And I'll say, show of hands, how many people liked last week's movie? How many people disliked it? And how many people sort of on the fence? And it's rare to get a unanimous opinion, rare. So I try to use that as a teaching lesson. All right, we all saw the same movie at the same time in the same place on the same screen. How is it possible you loved it and you hated it? How is that possible? Because we're all individuals. Each one of us is different. We don't know what you've experienced in life, how you were raised, where you were raised. We don't know what movies you've seen, what other movies you haven't seen that may cover the same material. There's so many, many reasons that you are who you are, and you come to this movie with a certain set of either expectations or prejudices or just life lessons.
Yeah, whether you mean
under
to
your
or
belt.
not, it's just kind of there.
Yep. It's
Actually silly, but it's my favorite part of the class because you never know. You get the 18-year-olds, but mostly it's 20-somethings in the class because it's usually taken by juniors and seniors or grad students, and that to me is always fascinating because it is such a wide range of humans, and to see them, and sometimes even when you're sitting in class, you can tell what the reaction is. They're either not getting it or they're loving it. Sometimes, he showed Tangled when that came out a few years ago. And
a Disney animated
Rapunzel film. And what's always funny is that you know they're going to try not to like it for a little bit because they're so cool. And they're going to try not to like it for a while. In the same way that they still kind of like little kids, they'll giggle if someone's kissing or if there's a nude scene. You want to walk around, really, guys? Really? But you can see them whenever you've had animated movies. They always sort of, it's that first few minutes of going, no, whatever. I don't even know. Oh my God, this is delightful. And it's my favorite thing is to watch them switch and watch them finally just kind of give in to a film.
Yep.
And enjoy it.
Well, they have to be given permission to let their guard down.
Yeah.
Because there's peer pressure, especially at that age. There's a lot of peer pressure to be cool and to fit in. And so you don't want to be the one person who has dropped that facade and let a true emotion come through, a genuine emotion come through. And that tends to happen with films like that.
Yeah.
Films that involve any kind of sweetness or innocence.
Yeah, anything that's kind and warm and fuzzy, they tend to sort of go, ugh.
But if there's one thing I've learned from this class, I don't have a lot of one-on-one relationships with such a large student body, but although some of them make a point of coming up and talking to me afterwards.
My grandma loves you.
I do get that, yes. I'm afraid it's true.
It's not awkward in the slightest.
Yeah.
My
used to it
dead
now.
great-grandmother thinks you're great.
But what's funny is I cease now to tar the next generation with the same brush. I can't say, oh, these kids, they've got no appreciation for blank.
With their music and their headphones.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they're all so conservative. They're all so liberal. They're all, no.
It's a mix.
There's a lot of individuals. And they come from, and USC actively recruits, as you know, students from all over the country and outside the country. And they have a very generous scholarship program. So we do have people of all stripes there.
Sometimes we'll get the football team. That's just a blast because they sit in the back, and so they always sit together. They're huge. They're football players, and you know where they are because you cannot miss them. And that's another one of my great joys, to sit near them during a movie that's a little bit sappy, just to see these gigantic human beings, just sort of give in after a while, giggle or laugh. I've seen tears before. They're way too cool for tears, but I've totally seen tears.
I don't know if I've told the
love
story
it.
before or not, but I learned early on. I've been teaching it now for 18 years,
More
I
than
think,
that.
19 years.
Yeah.
I learned early on that there's some films that just aren't right for this class. Now, again, I don't want to be accused of generalizing, but not every movie is for every audience. I have no stomach for graphic gore. So these
Not even great. You don't like scary movies.
I don't, but I
Doesn't
mean,
like
but I
scary-
especially
jumps out of
don't
his
like,
skin.
especially don't like graphic gore.
Beats up me and my mom.
And
Bruises all over the arm.
well, it's true. Teen horror movies, not my thing. Just not my thing. Well, many years ago, I was invited to show a film called Message in a Bottle with Kevin Costner and Robin Wright, and Paul Newman playing Kevin Costner's father, which was a treat to see. So it was always a treat to see him.
Do you remember the first thing they said? I was watching them as they were getting the little cheat sheet with the bios and everything, and I just kept hearing, "Oh, it's a salad dressing guy, it's a lemonade guy," and I was like, "Oh God, why? Why is this happening?"
Yeah.
Oh, Paul Newman,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. Well, at least it raised a lot of money for good.
Yeah,
good cause.
it's delicious too.
Anyway, well, they were openly hostile to this movie.
Yeah.
There's no other way to describe it.
Laughing at it.
Why? Because there was no sex. It was about a widower and a divorcee. And they're 20 years old. What do they care about a widower and a divorcee? This is a film for a more mature audience, which is to say, old. And like me and my wife. We liked it. We enjoyed it. It's not a great movie. It was a pleasant enough way to spend 2 hours' time. But boy, did it lay an egg, to use the old variety slanguage. And Alice was in the ladies' room afterwards, and she heard what the female students were saying. Oh, it was
Nothing
grim.
good.
Fortunately, the filmmaker did not come to the screening. He came after the screening.
Sometimes they sit through. Sometimes they come and they sit through the showing and
Because
then
they
get
want to
up for
see
Q&A.
how it plays and what the reaction is. of
And
younger
sometimes it's great, and other times you just feel so bad for them.
So I said to
bad.
this kind filmmaker, Luis Mondoki, as I was walking him down the aisle to the stage, I said, "I'm not sure this was the ideal audience for your film." And he said, "I understand." And when we got on stage, I interview him first, and then I open it up to questions. Well, on the first night of every semester, I say very carefully to the kids, remember, this is not a debating society. And remember to be respectful. You can ask tough questions if you ask them in an intelligent and respectful way. They don't have to be cream puff questions. But remember, politeness matters. That's our house rule. So almost nobody had anything to say.
If you can't say something nice,
That's right, quoting Thumper
don't
from
say
Bambi. There
nothing
you
at
go.
all.
And so it was a pretty quiet Q&A session. A couple of my better, smarter students who get it raised their hand and invented questions to ask to save the embarrassment of the silence. And God bless them.
I've been a plant before. If I see that no one's putting their hands up, at some point I just sort of, and you make something up.
Yep.
You made a film. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, any port in a storm. But so I haven't booked any films like that since. But I said to the class a week later, I said, now you know how I feel watching Scream 3. Not every film is for every audience. That's just the way it is. And that's life.
Yeah.
And all I look for in movies is variety. I'm looking for variety. I look for originality too.
Yeah.
But I don't want you can't eat too much chocolate too.
I've never heard you say that.
Is this a good moment to mention morsels?
Such a good oh my goodness. I know what you're thinking. What I've always wanted in my life is a small dessert that is named after Leonard Maltin. This is the pinnacle of your career because they are delicious.
We got to the festival and we started reading the brochures and local, magazines and newspapers and all that, and saw that this lovely bakery coffee house called Morsels had prepared about 8 or 10
Yeah.
special items named after
Busfield, Noel Wells.
named after
couple of
people
different-
associated
Gilbert
with this
Gottfried.
festival. And so there is a Leonard Malted.
Leonard Malted, and it's all chocolate, and it is so good. And we went and we got to meet the Nice Owners last night.
Yeah.
At the closing night party, and oh my goodness,
Oh my goodness, indeed.
delightful.
Anyway, if you like chocolate,
If you like Leonard and you like chocolate, then this is
you don't
for
have
you.
to like me. You can
This is
disagree
for
with my
you.
reviews entirely and still like this.
No, I was tickled because people were coming into Morsels and ordering it, and had no idea. I don't think they even knew who you were or that you were sitting there. It was just like, this looks tasty.
You posted a picture online on
I
Twitter
sure
and
did.
Instagram.
I
yeah?
sure did. Well, they posted a picture. That's how I found it. Is they posted a picture on Twitter, and then we I took a picture of you with it. Yeah, I'm his personal paparazzi.
We've kind of milked this,
Follow him
haven't we?
around. Oh,
No pun intended.
milk. Look what you did.
Yes, I know.
Look what you did.
I didn't mean to. I just did it. But God bless them. Very kind,
So
very flattering,
Yeah,
very nice. Which is what I can say about all the people we've met this week.
it's ridiculous.
Uh,
I don't know what you put in the water that makes you all so pleasant, but we might need to
Such-
ship some home.
Such friendly folks.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. And in contrast, I don't want to get
Don't
into
do
that.
it.
No, I won't go
Don't
there.
do it.
I won't go there. In contrast to another recent European film festival that we attended.
Never again.
But anyway.
Never again.
Though I did see some interesting movies.
You did. Yeah, you
from
did.
around the globe, all
did.
kinds of films that were worth seeing.
The only real issue I had was the techno that never stopped. Just
outdoors.
the biggest stereotype possible is 24/7 techno in Europe. And there was actually 24/7 techno in Europe. And outside of our hotel, you could shut the windows.
the
It
wee
didn't make a
hours.
difference. Just unta through the window. Through the window. And at one point, my mom and I, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, and we both couldn't sleep. And I said to her, I'm like, should we just go downstairs and party? We just go downstairs and dance around a little bit? And she said, don't you succumb to this. Don't you give in to that thud noise. I said, all right.
Two things that I did participate in Karlovy Vary are on YouTube.
Yeah, and they're really cool.
We had a session that they called a masterclass with the film composer James Newton Howard, who was a guest in my class many years ago.
Yeah.
I'd love to get back too.
Yeah.
He's very articulate,
Funny.
and very engaging.
Honest.
Well, he wrote the score for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and he brought along a clip of just the opening title sequence from the Warner Brothers logo dissolving into another logo, I think, and then finally the main title card. Fantastic
No, it starts
Beasts.
off it says Warner Brothers, and then as it pushes in, it goes to Fantastic Beasts and Where to
Okay.
Find Them.
So first he showed it silent.
Yeah.
This is how it looks with no music. You're going to correct me when I get it wrong, so you might as well tell it.
What I did, I would do that. Well, no, what was really, so they had a baby grand set up, which was very cool to have him playing the piano, and there was a screen above there, kind of like this behind us, big screen, and he explained, and what made this a masterclass was watching this, and whether you're a person who loves music or just likes it, or if you just, I think if you enjoy watching artistry and seeing what people can do. This was so cool. So yeah, he showed it once with no sound, and then he explained one of the toughest things is that Hedwig's theme from Harry Potter has become, music that we know, whether you know it or you don't. If I play it for you.
It's the Harry Potter music.
Yeah.
And it's John Williams' composition.
And that's...
And the producers were insistent that the film open with 4, 8 bars, whatever it is.
something similar to it.
Yeah. No. Williams' actual theme.
It's close. It's not
Yeah.
exact. It's not
Okay.
exact, but it's close. And
Then, as the main title comes on,
it switches
a
to
brand
his
new
music.
theme composed by Mr. Howard.
And he explained, he said, one of the toughest things is having John Williams over your shoulder. Not literally, the guy wasn't there, but it's the idea that he's so aware of, I have to come up with something that is as good or better than this. And
So he played his
not
first
easy to
version of
do.
the theme. He played his first first draft, if you will,
Yeah.
of the theme on the piano, and gosh, it sounded good.
Beautiful.
Beautiful piece of music.
And again, to have him playing is really neat. To have him just playing.
And the director, David Yates, who did, I think, the last 3 Harry Potter movies.
Something like that.
Listen to it. He's British, and he said, very nice,
All right.
but no.
Yeah.
And James went back to the well 42 times for a total of 43 attempts to come up with a theme that would please the director of Fantastic Beasts.
And he did end up using quite a bit of the music that he came up with throughout the film. And even that, what David Yates said to him a few times, this will be really nice for this, but not for the opening. And having, as I say, having him play the piano, show it to us. And then, so what he'd do is he'd play a little bit of it on the piano, and then they'd roll it again. So you could actually hear and see what it would have sounded like as it goes in. And that, again, it didn't faze me initially, because I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. I didn't know what to expect. And I think he played 3 or 4 different ones for us. And by the time he got to the last one, and he really played it on the piano. Initially, it was just sort of like a hint of it. This, he played quite a bit of it on the piano. And then they showed it to us again, and you thought, wow, that's how you came up with that.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And this interview is on YouTube, the whole thing.
And we have a link to it
So-
on my
On your website?
on my website.
On the
That same
website that
one.
you have?
It's in the middle of the piece on the Karlovy Vary Film Festival.
Yep.
Anyway,
But you can also just search it.
it's a really interesting session with him.
So cool.
And the questions from the audience were very good too.
They were.
They asked really pertinent things.
One of the things, and this actually, I have a newfound respect for James Newton Howard. One of the things they said is, how do you keep from repeating yourself? And he said, are you saying I repeat myself? It was very funny. And he said, it's tough, and that's part of why you need other people. He said, when you're creating 8 hours of music over the course of a year, how do you keep from, repeating yourself, doing it again? And even that, as I say, he was very humble about it in his explanation.
Yeah.
And saying it can happen, and that's why you need other people to listen to it, and that's why you have people you trust.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a musically trained to
No, not at all.
appreciate what he was saying
at all.
and what he demonstrated as well.
Yeah.
The other interview I did was with a very nice young woman I'd never met before named Sara Flack. She happened to be on one of the juries this year, and she is a film editor. She just edited The Beguiled for Sofia Coppola and has done, I think, almost all
Yeah, she works a lot
of
with
Sofia's
Coppola.
movies.
Yeah.
But she got her start with Steven Soderbergh. She got her start. She's a great example, a role model to follow. She started as what we used to call in my days a gopher. Now they call them PAs, production assistants.
Sounds nicer, but you're still a gopher.
Yeah.
Go for this, go for that.
Go for
That's why
coffee.
it's- Yeah.
Go for the Xerox room, whatever. And that's how she started. But Soderbergh and his producing partner took note of her because she did her job well. She did it with enthusiasm. She showed initiative. And before long, she was an apprentice editor working with Soderbergh, and then graduated to the point where she became a full-fledged editor. She edited several of his movies, and including The Limey, which is a terrific movie, and she's in demand. She's a very successful editor. But that's a path, a career path, that's still open to everybody. If you can get a job getting coffee, take that job, and then do it well. And some people don't get it, they don't understand. All the years I worked at Entertainment Tonight, we always had interns. There was a college intern program that they had set up where students got credit for coming and working X number of hours a week at ET. And we gave them, of course, the most menial jobs there were. And within just 2 weeks' time, you could tell which young people had it and which ones didn't, which ones were likely to succeed and which weren't, because they had that X factor of making themselves friendly, useful, being there, not having to have things explained 4 times. And some of them got hired.
Yeah.
There was never a promise of a job.
Assistants or things like that.
There was never a promise of a job at the end of this training time. But the really good ones would get called into a producer's office who would say, so what are your plans? What are you doing after this semester?
Yep.
Or are you graduating? And a lot of them would get hired. I had a guest in my class who went from being a gopher to being a cinematographer on a feature that we showed because he worked on very small-scale indie movies. And again, he didn't treat what he did as drudge work.
No.
He did it with alacrity. He did it with, alacrity. Nice word.
Nice word.
And yes, people took note of him.
Yeah.
And again, he was friendly, nice to be around, nice to have around. And eventually, the cameraman, the DP on the show, hired him to be his second assistant, and then first assistant, and then one day, the DP was going to, the director of photography, was going to move on to another job, and he said to the producers, "You should give Hector my job. He's capable. He could do this. He could take over my job." And they hired him, and they never looked back. So those things still happen. It's not to say don't go to film school, but even if you do go to film school and you learn a lot of valuable things and a lot of the fundamentals and a lot of the technique, it doesn't hurt to just get your foot in the door. Somehow get your foot in the door. And then once you're in that door, make the most of it. Absolutely make the most of it. Some people don't get that.
No. And those people stay gophers forever.
Yeah. Or go into government work. There are other openings, there are other possibilities. What can I say? Dare we take some questions from this nice audience here? What do you think?
We were going to do that when we finish the podcast.
I know, but
if you want to do it now, we can do it now.
I'm a little itchy, and I think it would be nice if we could get some
This is my father. He's a little itchy.
And we're going to turn up the house lights a little bit. That's nice. And we have some volunteers with mics. So wait till the microphone gets to you, and we'll start over here.
And remember, questions, not stories. Ask him questions.
I would like to hear your responses to the Isabella Huppert films that were shown here.
Elle?
I've seen them, both Elle and...
Yeah, Paul Verhoeven's Elle. Well, I thought it was fascinating. Tough movie. Fascinating, arresting, outrageous, and I liked it. And I liked her in it. My wife was turned off by it, I should add, but I thought it worked. I thought it worked because it was so bold and so audacious and didn't hold back. That's Paul Verhoeven's M.O. But, it's not everybody's cup of tea. What did you think, sir?
Same way.
Yeah.
I guess I was wanting a little bit more of background explanation to the motivation.
Okay. But why she acts the way she does.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. And there's a young man here with a question.
Bye, Leonard. Sorry,
Hi.
that's a thing I've always wanted to do. It's a childhood
Okay.
thing. Don't worry about it.
Do it again.
Bye, Leonard.
Okay. To make a child's dream come true, what higher aspiration would one have?
That's what you're here for.
That's why I'm here.
For the kiddies at home.
Okay.
So my father here has been wondering about the restored second half of the classic Laurel and Hardy short Battle of the Century, which has the greatest pie fight in the history of the universe ever in it. Do you know anything about that? Or anything going on?
Oh, is it coming out on home video? We sure hope so. I know there are people trying to make that happen right now. We should explain what is your name? Hi, Max. Bye, Max. I've always wanted to say that. Now I have. Well, Max is talking about the great 1927 Laurel and Hardy film, The Battle of the Century, which is one of the very, very few Laurel and Hardy films that has not been available in its entirety for the last 85 years. The first half was found. In fact, it was found by me at the Museum of Modern Art. I worked at the MoMA in 1976 doing a program there on comedy, and I did something I don't think anyone else had done in those days, pre-computer days. They had every film in the collection on a file card. And I decided I was going to go through every one of those file cards just to see what they had. Flip, 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 flip. It took a long time. Turned out they had Reel 1, a 35 millimeter nitrate print of Reel 1 of Battle of the Century, which no one had seen in decades. Fortunately, the people who owned the rights to the Laurel and Hardy films in Europe immediately paid for a restoration. They may have done this with the Library of Congress. I hope I'm not getting the details wrong. But they saved it. Well, that's great. But we're still missing Reel 2. And all that did exist of Reel 2, the great epic pie fight, had been excerpted in Robert Youngston's film, The Golden Age of Comedy, which is a film that's well worth watching. That film changed my life. Really did change my life. That's what got me hooked on vintage comedy. But he cut it down and left out the other intro and closing sections of Reel 2. Well, there was a film collector friend of mine who bought out a library of 16 millimeter prints years ago, and it went through several hands and wound up in the hands of an old friend, a brilliant silent film pianist named John Marsalis. John went through each and every one of these films and cans, screened them all to sell them to other collectors, donate them, whatever. And he opens one can and he can't believe his eyes. It says, Reel 2, Battle of the Century. Impossible. No, he actually had it. It had been sitting on somebody's shelf all those years. So then Serge Bromberg and Eric Lang at Lobster Films in Paris took all these components and pieced them back together. There's still a little tiny bit of footage, beginning transition footage at the beginning of Reel 2. They have 2 stills, and they cover that footage with stills and an explanatory title card. I've seen it with audiences at least 3 times now. It's a killer. It's just wonderful. And we're all hoping that some smart person is going to find a way to put it out on home video soon. That's too long an answer, I'm sorry. But it's worth it because this film is great. It's called The Battle of the Century.
We should also say that Lois Laurel just passed away. And she did an incredible job.
Stan's daughter.
Stan's daughter did an incredible job of keeping his memory alive.
Yep. Very supportive of the Laurel and Hardy Club, Sons of the Desert.
Very supportive.
And Jessie's very, very connected to all of this because she was born on Stan Laurel's birthday.
Yes.
June 16th. So she feels a certain connection.
Well, and Lois, because I think I'm probably the only 3-year-old that went up to her and was really excited. They shared a birthday with Stan Laurel. And so she was always very, very kind to me.
So we wish her Godspeed. Yes?
I'm wondering if you could give us maybe your top 5 of the movies you've seen here during this
From the festival? Oh, I haven't seen enough. I got here.
Have you even seen 5?
We got here exhausted from our trip to Europe, followed by our trip to Anaheim, California.
For D23.
For the Disney convention where I hosted several things. And then we came in jet lagged from LA. So I'm afraid I have to be candid. I've only seen just a few films so far. I hope to see more today and tomorrow to make up for it. No, tomorrow. Today.
Yeah, today. There you go.
You can see where my brain is.
Yes.
I hope to catch up.
He really enjoyed Gilbert. Really,
Documentary about Gilbert Gottfried.
Yep.
And I would recommend that if anyone has a chance to see that at any time. I'm sorry I can't oblige you. Yes, up front here. The friendly-looking woman in the colorful blouse.
Can you talk about the difference between, in your opinion, about the old Beguiled with Clint Eastwood and Sofia Coppola's Beguiled, and why, in general, I saw a very shocking trailer that in the trailer told the whole film that you sort of feel like, I don't need to see it. I just saw the whole film in the trailer. So I'd like to know your opinion about those two films, and then why are they giving away everything in the trailer?
I'll answer the second part first.
Because they always give everything away.
They
in the
seem to give
trailer.
everything away in the trailer because they're so desperate. There's so much at stake now with every movie, so much money and jobs, in some cases, are riding on the success or failure of a movie. And they feel if they don't give you enough to really hook you, you're not going to show up.
Yeah.
And so the best jokes, the most explosive action scenes, all turn up in the trailer. That's why I don't watch trailers.
Show them what you do in movie. Give me
All right.
this for a second.
Okay.
Show them what you do in a movie.
At press screenings, they don't show trailers, but if I go to my local multiplex, this is what I do.
You can't see for everyone at home, but it's adorable, and he basically looks like a
My
small
hands
child.
on my ears, my eyes closed, humming to myself. I'll sometimes look, but if it starts to seem as if it's going to give away too much,
Stop listening.
I'll just stop.
Just shut off.
Other people, of course, can't wait to see trailers.
Yeah.
It's an event now, the release of a new trailer. Not for me. I want to see the movie knowing as little as possible ahead of time. I really want to go in, cold, preferably. And because of my travels, I have to admit, I have not seen the new Beguiled by Sofia Coppola. I saw the original, the Don Siegel film with Clint Eastwood when it was new. I remember being a very oddball film then, but an interesting one. But I haven't seen the new one, so I can't compare.
Has anybody seen The Beguiled? A smattering of yes. The old one, yeah, no, the old one. We always like the old ones better, but
Any other questions? If we can bring a microphone over too. We have a couple more. There's one on the aisle and then one right up here.
Hi. First of all, I'm not really one of those college students that pretends not to like animation. I love animation. I got my How to Train Your Dragon shirt on. And I was curious, since you were at D23 and they announced their slate basically through 2020, not just the animation panel, but the Marvel and Star Wars and all that. I think it's interesting. I don't know if it was ever a true statement or if something that Walt felt that way, but that the studio was never, the main studio at least, the Walt Disney Animation Studios, was never going to do sequels to their movies. And now, of course, we have, I guess the past exception was probably Rescuers Down Under, which is good. But now they've got Wreck-It Ralph 2 and Frozen 2 on their slate. And I think the only original movie that's been officially announced is their Jack and the Beanstalk one. But I'm curious as to your thoughts on that, because for a long time that seemed to be kind of the holdout, that and Pixar, and then of course Pixar's made a whole bunch. But I'm curious about that.
Well, it's true. Both Disney and Pixar have been holdouts and have tried to avoid doing sequels, and they've made those statements. But it's a business. And there's just so much, there's so much at stake with every film that I think they have succumbed. I know they've succumbed to the temptation. And that's why we had a Cars 3. And they're doing a Toy Story 4.
they have talked about in interviews that Cars 2 and 3 were going to happen almost immediately because of the merchandise. They sold an insane amount of merchandise for Cars. And it makes sense. Little boys, little girls too, but a lot of the little boys, you see them, they're carrying around, one of the cars, two of the cars, all that stuff. So that was a big one for them. They knew pretty quickly that they were going to make as many of those as possible to keep the merchandise going.
Yeah. So, I know a lot of Disney fans are disappointed with this.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I think if we want to look at the bright side, it's that when they work on a sequel, they work twice as hard to try to make it, to justify itself, to justify the reason for being, other than just monetary reason for being. And, so they give it their best shot. They give it 100%. So I'm not going to throw mud at them for doing this. I wish they would come up with new ideas instead. But I understand that it's a business and they have to do it. When Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs came out in 1937, everybody said the same thing. Make another one. We love those dwarfs. We want to see another movie. And he refused to do it.
He wanted to do something new, something different for him.
Yeah, he always was seeking new territory, new pastures, and it's one of his most admirable traits, I think. But I'm not going to condemn them for doing what they're doing. I'll just take each film on its own terms. Yeah. If they work, great. If they don't work, then they don't work.
And I don't think we really saw this. We don't really pay attention. When, you know how with the Marvel Universe, they've announced till, I think, 30 how many movies they have coming out. We just don't really pay attention to it because he's got so many movies to watch every week, like now, that the idea of thinking ahead to a 2018, 2019, 2020 makes my head hurt.
Yeah.
So
I just hope they come up with good stuff.
Yeah.
That's all. Gentleman here in a colorful cap.
Hello.
Hello.
If the Leonard Maltin Awards were held today, what films and performances from this year would be up for Malti?
Okay.
It's a bit of a BoJack Horseman joke.
Yep.
If you don't watch the show BoJack Horseman, they did a whole thing about the Leonard Maltin Awards called the Maltese. And
you could look it up.
Very funny.
My favorite film so far this year is Get Out.
Yeah.
Jordan Peele's film. Yeah. The most original, entertaining, unexpected film I've seen in a long, long time, and perfectly executed.
And why did it make so much money? Because they didn't spend an arm and a leg going in. This is part of it. You know,
it was made on a modest budget, and so it's a success.
Yeah, talking about just the idea of, you know, we're saying with trailers, they give so much away because they have so much at stake. If you're a film that hasn't spent $100 million, you don't have to make back $100 million. So if you, I know they've talked about what that film was and how much it cost, and for today's standards, it's nothing.
Yeah.
They have different tiers of indie, micro indie, all kinds of things like that. But this one, part of its success in that way is that it's made quadruple what it cost, more than that probably.
I'm excited too because it's the emergence of a new voice in American cinema, and I wish him every success. I hope we'll see more good films from Jordan Peele soon, and for a long time to come. Folks, we are out of time. Thank you so much for being here, and if you haven't heard our podcast before, we have wonderful guests week to week, and we hope you'll give it a try. It's called Maltin on Movies. You can find it at the Nerdist website, or you know now where you can find a link to it, don't you?
Leonard's website. Hey!
Yes, leonardmaltin.com. And where can they find you, Jess?
They find me next to you. I am at Jessie Maltin on Twitter. You are at Leonard Maltin. I am at Jessie Maltin on Instagram. You are at Leonard Maltin. You can go to his website. You can go to his Facebook page. You can subscribe to his website, and then you can find out every time he posts
for free
reviews for free.
Absolutely free.
Find reviews and talk. You have a.
And you can stop me on the street here in Traverse City and say hello.
Yeah.
And I hope you will.
Yeah.
And thank you, Traverse City, for being so welcoming.